Good morning. Tony Dattino here, founder and chairman of the USA Memory Championship, talking again about this really terrific booklet put out by Massachusetts General Hospital called Mind, Mood, and Memory. And today I want to talk about the session of Forget Me Not, which is what is a key. One of the keys to memory is knowing what the steps are that we take to encode information into our brain so that when we want to retrieve it, it's there, and it's much easier to facilitate. I call it the pulling out, the grabbing the hooks and moving it out. And it says the next time that, it's an interesting way they introduce it. The next time that you think you've forgotten something, don't get panicky and don't give it a senior moment thought, but to step back and think about, well, what conscious actions did you take to remember what it was that you want to now recall? What was I doing when I left my keys, or I put my glasses down, or in my case yesterday I left some crossword puzzles in the doctor's office? What were we doing that divided our attention, that caused us not to be in focus at that moment, and therefore we forgot where we put our keys, we forgot where we may have placed our cell phone, we forgot where we were last when we were reading or needing our glasses. I forgot, where I laid down some crossword puzzles I was doing in a doctor's office, because our focus was somewhere else at the moment of placing down the keys or the phone or the glasses. And in my case, the doctor walked in the office and I placed my crossword puzzles on a counter, and then when he was giving a script and a prescription and telling me how to process that, we walked out the door and there went the crossword puzzle booklet that I had with me. So we really need to be thinking that it's not that we had a memory lapse, it's that we never encoded, we never took the time at the moment of placing down or the moment of where we wanted to retain something, we never stopped to think about how we were going to encode, enhance the ability to focus and put something into our memories. And then as we step back and we think about that, well, how will we do that? And it's not just a matter, well, let me just look at that. Okay, so I'm going to look at this and now I'll just, it's how do I make a couple of links and connections and association? The process of laying down memories, so now I'm just going to read a little bit here. The process of laying down memories involves an interaction of three brain activities. Three. So who steps and thinks about this, right? Oh, it's a senior moment, I just forgot. No, there are three steps in making a memory so you have it for retrieval. And the first step is encoding. Taking what you're seeing and putting it into your memory in a very focused way, in a way that does build some associations and links and connections. So when you're looking at something, focus in that moment. What link and connection? So I went backwards now in my head and I think, okay, in my case, I was sitting in a chair waiting for the doctor to come in. I put this paper down, got it. I had some actions and I had some links and connections to what I was doing at the moment of, oh, I forgot. We call that piece the ability to store, okay? So we're going to encode and now we're going to store, or retaining information over time. So how do we encode it? Then helps us to put it into storage. So how did we retain this information over a period of time? And what is it that we did that allowed us to do that? I know in the course that we have online, Maximum Memory Mastery, we have a whole section in there on what we call memory rhythms, which is a way of saying, how do we retain information over a period of time that synchronize with the memory cycles that we go when we take information from the present, we put it in for long term. So we're not just dealing with short-term memory, but we're dealing with long-term as well. So how do we not just encode, but how do we put it into storage and then keep it there for long-term retrieval? meaning we eventually want to pull it out for some application or use. We see someone at a store. We see them maybe once a week at that store, and we finally stop to introduce ourselves and get their name. Do we take a minute of time or a few seconds of time where we want to focus, we want to encode, and we want it there for long term? So maybe when we meet them and we go into the store, we go outside and we talk to someone and say, let me tell you about Mary that I just met at the store. It was just a fun person, and boom. So you do some things that encode it so that it has some storage with some intentionality to it that then matches up our memory rhythms of repeating it several times at different intervals. So maybe tomorrow, if you're talking with someone, hey, let me tell you about this person that I met at the store yesterday. Her name was Mary. And boy, a couple of thoughts of what hit me. And you're building pathways. You're building some repetition, and you're building what we call the ability to retrieve information. So we talk about now the encoding, the storage, and the retrieval. And searching through our memory bank for information we've stored. So we want to be very selective, because this takes a bit of intentionality. We want to be intentional about what we're putting into our storage for the purposes of, we want to be able to recall it at some future period of time. So let's go through this quickly. Encoding information becomes entered into long-term memory when we notice what is happening. Or do we notice and do we focus? We think about its meaning. Why is it important to us? And then we make some associations to something we already know, so that we have something already solid in our database, as I'll call it, and we're linking something new to it so that it now builds a little bit more of a database of information that allows you to link and connect and pull all of that information back out. Harvard University Department, the Dr. Schechter, we can also fail when a person's attention is divided rather than focus on the incoming information. So we're picking something off the shelf when we're trying to talk to somebody, or we're on a phone call and somebody's trying to talk to us. We tend not to engage in effortful encoding. It means that basically we can easily improve memory with just a little bit more focus and attention, because we, again, so often, this happens to me sometimes. I'm on a cell phone, I park a car in a parking lot, go off to do what I'm doing, and then I have to step back and think before I go to the next step. Where did I just park the car? Let me go back and think about where that is. That's the encoding process. Now we have storage. The stronger the encoding, the stronger the memory trace is for the brain. If little thought and effort goes into the process of acquiring, pulling it in, it may only last maybe a few hours. Maybe it's a day. When we have a better job of the encoding process and then go through a memory rhythm in terms of the cycle of review, that builds the storage capacity to where it has more permanence. It stays in there a little bit longer, and it has more meaning, and it has more longevity to it. And so when we do the right focus, the right encoding, and then the right review in what we call memory rhythm cycles, Michael Dottino in the Maximum Memory Mastery course does a superb job of really explaining what those intervals were and what the process is of review when you want to put something into long-term memory. And so when we're working with students that want to pass an exam, or professionals that want to have a professional exam for a promotion attached, that they'll use this information into their jobs, we'll take much more time focused on memory rhythms so that that information goes not from a day, but to a week, but to a month, but to long-term permanence to it. And what are our memory rhythms that need to be reinforced for the long term so the retrieval of that information gets easier? And then we get to the retrieval part. It's the final stage of memory. It involves calling up that information. It's time for your memory banks to deliver. And when memory fails, what do we do to ourselves? Oh, I'm getting older, or my brain is just not working as well as it is, or my goodness, you know what? It's a senior moment. I just get older, and therefore my memories are just fading. Actuality, what I would continue to argue is that, in fact, the older we get, if we're practicing these skills and we're being more mindful of, and we're encoding them in a much more intentional way, we're doing the memory rhythms of review and cycles of when our memories are likely to dip. That in actuality, because of our experience and our life's histories of encoding, our brain has an infinite amount of storage here. If we keep exercising that brain and we keep building that storage, it actually should get easier to remember things as we get older. But that's always an interesting debate, and I sometimes debate some of the science reports that I read. That just, I think, just do an injustice to people by not letting them know that there's no reason that we have to just wait until our memories are gone and we get the dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever. If we're active in our lives and doing the things of encoding and storage and retrieval and being intentional about it, what we're capable of doing. And I think the book is still out on that, and we're still working on it. And I think it's exciting in terms of what we're learning about the potential of human memories and human thought. Well, we have just gone to another weekend. I just, the days go by. I do my Live with Tony's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I've been doing more of them in the morning because I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget. I'm more intentional of looking at my calendar, so I'm not just trying to squeeze it in 5 minutes at a time of the day when I'm involved with 6 or 7 other things. These are really important to me. I really want to convey messaging out to people that make a difference in their lives. So I need to take times more in the morning when I can isolate that time and take some focus and share some information that I think should make a difference to anybody that listens to my Facebook broadcast.